Sorry.
He's dying.
There's a coffee going down the wrong pipe.
Yeah, you got incense burning, and then you're coughing. It seems awful suspicious.
Awfully suspicious things going on here. Get that book off the table.
That's for our other podcast.
Yeah. Okay, so this seems absolutely necessary, this episode.
Yes, it's absolutely necessary. So I want to get into a little bit more. Yesterday we talked about this, a little bit more of the philosophy of data and the philosophy of TARTLE. Because I think it's important that people understand the importance of data. So let's start off with how we give a voice to data.
Data's typically been uncaptured.
Right.
So, people want to walk around and be heard. Okay, well, what do? They go to, big protests, or they'll walk with banners on the streets, or they'll do sit-ins. They want to be heard.
Mm-hmm.
Well, your mind, your thoughts, they want to be heard too. They need to be captured. You capture them, generally what's going on up in here just for yourself. But, if you're honest and you're doing good things, you'd want to capture that stuff and share it with others. First of all, I always say this, like when I'm driving, I wish that person put their blinker on.
Right.
I don't know what you're thinking.
Right.
Data captures the aspects of us as human beings that affords us the opportunity to really understand what somebody else is thinking. We've never really captured, other people have tried to capture it on our behalf, and they've crafted a world around looking at us and then putting that data together.
Yeah, in a passive-aggressive way.
In a passive-aggressive way, and then defining our decisions. But data it now has the opportunity to sit with the individual who is creating those thoughts or behaviors. And when you're at that fundamental level, you can fundamentally solve human issues, because now we are capturing the things that create those issues,
right?
Which is all of us as a collective. So data solves humanity's problems.
Yeah, and I want to get into that a little bit more. But when we think of a voice, like giving a voice, and then I want to use the word significance, because I think this is important. When there'll be people, even now, and with 7.5 billion people, I don't know how many people commit suicide every day, but
sure,
it's got to be tens of thousands, I would imagine.
Think about how much of that data goes uncaptured to actually know.
Yeah, exactly.
It's hard to tell if somebody wants to commit suicide.
But when somebody wants to commit suicide, usually their ideas are, I'm worthless, there's no hope, there's no significance to me. So
what if they're having those internal conversations? So what if we gave a voice to that so somebody else could hear what was otherwise quiet, and these people could share it privately? And then through that sharing, we could be like, there seems to be a very negative, non-fulfilling path that is going on in this person's mental state. TARTLE gives that data, that capture of those human elements, a voice, so it can be heard by others, and then thought about and analyzed, and then help can be brought back to that individual.
Well, you also have to look at it, because when we take this perspective of data and we take humanity and creating that bridge, which TARTLE does do that, is this collective intelligence and thought.
That's all data. Listen, TARTLE and data is collective intelligence.
That's the biggest of big data.
It's the biggest of the big.
Right.
And it's been the prime part of data that we've missed. Our technological revolution, up till when TARTLE was founded, had not done one thing about really capturing thing at the primary level. Those thoughts at a primary level. Collaborative data at a primary level.
Because you can really, when you look at collective intelligence, and we're seeing it now, ideas and thought are traveling faster, and we call it going viral, but it's just the speed. It's that speed of thought.
Correct.
That can come, and then you have groups of people that get together, create little tribes of thought, and then from there you have a collective of thought. But that collective of thought can be measured.
Yes.
The collective of thought can be analyzed.
And it can be acted upon.
Yes.
Which is fantastic. It also affords that group in their collective of that thought to come together and look at the information of that group. That collective information then leads to that collective identity, allowing them to work towards things that they are locally challenged with. Data's the log. Whether you have a personal challenge with your emotion or your mental state, right, or whatever that might be, data can solve that. It can log and remember for you, and then you can go back and reflect on it. If you're a collective and you're having trouble in your local area, whether it's with politics, right, or a conflict with other groups, data can help capture that and find bridges between these things to solve those problems and find understanding amongst groups. Data affords the opportunity to do that. TARTLE leads to that data collective, and that data collective leads to the solves that we need to evolve going forward. Especially
as you're seeing now the increasing bandwidth. So, as we began, remember when Microsoft first came out, and they were just doing constant updates all the time.
Yeah.
But we're seeing that with the infrastructure for bandwidth. So as we've moved to 10G or whatever, you just said it flawlessly worked. Your Elon Musk Starlink flawlessly worked.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
So as we're and satellite internet used to be kind of horrific. It was kind of like your last choice in a rural area, and it was slow.
Yeah.
So now you're having this increased bandwidth. So as we do this, and people need to understand that data is life experience.
Tell me.
So we're going to get to the point to where we're going to have virtual reality. I mean, that's just down the road. I don't know if it's 20 years from now or 50 years. And Ready Player One, the movie, set you up for that.
You know something? Data, when you said data is life experience?
Yes.
It is life experience.
Yes.
Why? Because your life experience is just being captured in an electronic medium. That's data. All of our life experiences, we remember way back, it was always stories. Let's share stories. Then a guy comes out with a printing press. It's like, let's put it on paper. Okay. Now we're collecting data on paper. Now I had to move this book back and forth. Okay. There's the transportation costs, all this other stuff. Jump forward to where we are now. That information, this life experience, is now being captured digitally, and it can move instantaneously. Relatively close to as fast as the speed of light is without whatever the net loss is in that medium. So life experience is in fact data right now in this age, and it will continue to be into the future.
Well, it's created a virtual data world.
Everything we do.
Yeah.
Is our,
But it's not really virtual. We can say it's like virtual reality, but it's not.
But the virtual is driving our real world decisions.
Yes.
That is what's obvious. So data, the intangible, the virtual, drives what happens in the physical, the real out here. And that doesn't mean data isn't real. Data just captures experience. It captures thought. Data defines life.
Yeah, well, it's even more than that. The data source, dies, but data lives forever.
Yeah, of course. And that's an interesting. I was on a call the other day with a gentleman, and it was geared more towards healthcare data. Yeah, and I think he might have taken what we were saying as like a threat to his business model. And I was just trying to be very symbiotic about it. Like rising tide lifts all ships, right? He said, yeah, but there's one thing you can't do. I'm like, what's that? You can't analyze dead people. We can. Okay, great. I got to tell you something, though. They're dead. And I'm only interested in what's alive and what's directly in front of me. Because that's an absolute fact. And you can continue to guess on a dead person's body. Oh, this is what killed them. It's never just one thing that kills them. It's a combination. And you'll never understand that combination that led to that death after the fact.
Well, what led to the death was the data life experience.
That's correct. It was a life experience, right? And how much of that life experience was captured. And what we find today is that almost 90% of our life experience is 100% captured with data. Do you remember when when digital cameras first started coming out?
Oh, yeah.
And they had the little tiny ones that always had a flash going, really bad quality. They fit in your pocket. Everybody was amped up about it. There was metadata. We're capturing stuff.
Yes.
And then social media comes out. It's like, I can take those pictures and I can house them on the internet and share them instantaneously with everybody.
With a timestamp and a GPS location?
Oh, this is getting very interesting, right? So life experience is that data.
So as we look at data evolving in correspondence, if we had a graph, it would be evolving with human consciousness.
Yep.
And so when we have this evolving human consciousness, we have this data life experience. So in this evolving human consciousness data experience, what does it look like whenever we look to the future, 3 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, as humanity evolves to a point where we have everything about us recorded, written, like you said with how they would write books or whatever.
Right.
So they would sit and, Aristotle would be teaching and then they would just write it down.
Correct.
Well, we have way more. We have volumes and volumes of books about us, written about us right now.
And so this is how I see the future. Everything becomes captured. Everything becomes analyzed down to the most minute details. And we will directly share in the experience of that analysis. The question at the end of the day for all of us will be, now that you have an answer, are you willing to act upon it? And that boils down to a question of responsibility. When data shows you the light, which it will, through your own habits and actions as a singular person or as a collective, the question is, will you or you in the group take on the responsibility to act in the future on the information that is truthful at hand in front of you, offering you a solution? And I'll give this specific point. People know that doing things that aren't good for them will not increase their lifespan. That's obvious, right? Smoking, eating poorly, obesity, driving a car fast.
That's who killed COVID.
Okay.
Not the driving car fast, but so it's all esoteric. We know it's bad for us. We know going to the McDonald's drive-thru is bad for us, but
right. And the data shows us that. But are we responsible enough in our level of collective consciousness within our evolution to say that we should not continue to pursue things that decrease the probability of our lifespan, and on top of that, decrease the probability of us evolving at a more accelerated rate?
I want to give an example of this because I think this is very, very, very important about changing our life experience, how data does. So we'll use McDonald's and then let's use Whoop. So Whoop has a cool thing on there when you drink alcohol.
Yeah.
So data becomes real. And it literally changes your life experience because when with Whoop, the whole idea of seeing me go to the red, for the next day and sometimes the other day, it would take me after I drank like 2 or 3 IPAs, beers, which I love,
bombs,
delicious. I would literally I would see visually red, and then I would see yellow, and then it finally went to green. Right. And it would ask me, every morning, did you drink alcohol?
Did you drink yesterday?
And then how many? That repetition of seeing that data visually changed the way that I used to not have an issue.
Yeah.
Because it was esoteric. It was in the sense of, I know I kind of have, my head hurts a little bit. I can drink some caffeine. I'm fine.
But it's too nebulous.
Yes.
Whatever. I can just get over it.
But when the data begins to, when you go to McDonald's drive-thru, and we have the ability to be able to show you that cheeseburger that you ate fucked you up for 3 days.
Yeah.
It raised your blood pressure. It did
spiked your insulin.
Spiked your insulin. And now all of a sudden you have these gauges, these virtual gauges on your phone that's all in the red because you had one cheeseburger. I think data is going, when we get this visual representation of data, I think it's going to change the way that we act. And you're 100% right, because now it's like, okay, you're pegging in the red. You've been pegging in the red for months. Yeah. You need to change every time you smoke a cigarette, here's what happens.
Right.
So when we can see that, I mean, when you go to the cardiologist, they do that now. How many reports do they run? They take blood work. Yeah. They have you run through a machine.
X-ray,
they put dye in your heart.
Yeah, correct.
I mean, how many? They'll get like 10 different reports.
Yeah.
And he comes back to you.
The works. Yeah.
He comes back to you and says, hey, you need to stop smoking. You need to lose weight.
How many, though? And then what happens? So let's talk about what happens.
People change for a little bit, and then they're coming.
And then they don't. And then what happens? You go back in. You got to get a bypass. single, double, triple, quadruple, okay? Or you just end up dying. People won't change their habits.
No, even in the data in front of them.
They refuse to pay attention to this because they don't understand. Is it a lack of appreciation for life? Their own life?
That's what I'm saying when we involve the human consciousness through data.
Right. And so when you are
will it evolve?
Of course it will evolve. It will continue to remind you. Truth reminds you. You can only push it away for so long, but it will receive its due course in time. Okay? And you will bear the weight of your ignorance towards truth. It's bound to happen. Okay? And if you don't want to respect the fact that you have set in a series of events, causes and effect, actions, captured by data that are screaming at you blue in the face every single day, and you continually choose to ignore them, there's only one person who's responsible in the end. That's you.